You know what I find really interesting? The amount of comments that I see people talking about canon. I've seen so many arguments. I've seen, oh, why am I including stuff from the games? Or why am I including some parts of the shorts? I'm just like, it doesn't really matter. I'm just including it all. If you don't think stuff is canon, then kind of just ignore it. I personally work on a bit of a canon tier list. Bam, 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 bam. The top tier would be the films and the short. Directly what the main trilogy is, and the couple of shorts around them. Even though I've heard that Legend of the Bone Napper is not canon anymore, which I find a bit weird. I don't really understand why that's not canon. They said that it's sort of going in the direction they didn't really want to go in for the franchise, which makes sense, but like I rewatched it and I thought, it's not really like too different. Like, yeah, they have the initial like, oh, let's slay the beast.
Touches my heart, you helping me slay the Bone Napper.
But then in the end it's the typical, oh, they're not that bad. So it's still like the exact same message pretty much for all of them. But I mean, it makes sense their attitude might be a bit like, let's slay it initially, because it was like right at the beginning, it was like right after the film. So I don't think how it doesn't really fit the direction, but I'd like to include it because it's in the first film and it doesn't, there's not real inconsistencies. I could just imagine like they flew back to back on the Bone Napper, showed everyone and go like, ah, then they just flew off and never been seen again. And also the bones, the skulls are like throughout like Race to the Edge as well. Oh, I've also seen people saying that Race to the Edge and stuff like that, and I'm like, what? Oh, of course the narrative in the Book of Dragons is also not canon, as it directly breaks the fourth wall, but it's more the information about the dragons in that is more important. Then I think the series is Riders of Berk, Defenders of Berk, Race to the Edge, and also the comics as well. The comics and the series as the second tier. So basically any inconsistency, if they say stuff there that doesn't match what's in the films, or if the films bring in something new, information that not consistent with the series is, then we just ignore that and then we just prioritize what was in the films and the shorts. I'm going to be counting 9 rounds separately, even though I did reference the 9 rounds in the last one. I'm still unsure whether or not to include some of that, because they have made very weird inconsistencies, like even with the same canon level. Like they gave a Razor Whip a Fireball Blast where it had like a white magnesium blast and Race to the Edge. So I'm like, bro, come on. And people say evolution, but that's just not how it works. And then other than that, then it's the games. Obviously, all the storylines in the games, obviously not canon. That just makes sense. But the information in it, like some of the dragons and some additional information about other dragons, I still think are canon. Because A, it fleshes out previous dragons, because obviously in the films, or even in some cases the TV series, they don't have enough time to flesh out the dragons in terms of their abilities. If it turns out they're inconsistent, like if in the games, I don't know, a dragon had an acid blast, but we then find out later in the films they have like a fireball blast, then obviously the information of the films that it having a fireball blast obviously take precedence. But I say that as if they're going to introduce something new. We have had all the films, and we pretty much have had all the series. That's the only thing I don't really like about the games. This is more personal preference. They started doing the hybrid dragons. They're kind of doing like a Jurassic World sort of thing. But in that, it makes sense because all the dinosaurs are genetic beasts. And you can just do that. It doesn't really suit the world of How to Train Your Dragon, and it's a bit weird. In order for a species to like create a hybrid, right, they'll need to be obviously very closely related. They don't have to be the same species or subspecies. They need to be within the same genus. That's why you can breed a lion and a tiger, because they are the same genus. They are the same genius. Aha! They are the same genus. So you can breed them together and get a liger or a Tyon. There is different names for the different parents. People say, oh, mule, that's a cross between a horse and a donkey. Yes, but it's a specific way around. I think it's when a mule is from a male donkey and a female horse, where the other way round is a hinny, which is a female donkey and a male horse. Don't ask me why it's like that. It's very complicated. This is why it just puts me off when I've seen it in the games. It's just like a hybrid just doesn't make sense, because I'm looking at these creatures. These dragons are definitely not within the same genus. They are vastly, vastly different. Animals within the same genus are very, very similar. Like a lion and a tiger, there is very little difference. But when you look at the dragons, they're so diverse. Especially the fact that some dragons have different amount of limbs. Like there's some technically wyverns, which technically on an evolutionary scale that'd be like completely different, because they just don't grow limbs and on and off like that, and that's a very long process. That's why hybrids sort of bug me. But I'm gonna do a video on like asking the audience like, do we like hybrids? what are we saying about them? Because in terms of my own headcanon on how I'm dealing with it, they should technically be canon. Because, you know, I include other game exclusive dragons. Oh, that was at a point that I wanted to get to. Okay, just didn't finish my point. But basically, due to the illogical inconsistencies, I don't like to include them. However, don't mistake this as all hybrids are off the table, because of course the Nightlights make sense. Night Furies and Light Furies are very closely related. I could see one between the Bone Napper and the Armor Wing, or the Death Song or the Slither Song, or the Hot Gerbil and the Gronkle. But they don't really do this because it's just kind of boring. Two very similar creatures will create a very similar offspring and wouldn't be very exciting compared to a brooding bolt stamper. But even then, there's some, like, in terms of canon, like, stuff does go into the other bits. You know, some of the game exclusive dragons are like, you could kind of see in the second film as well. In a distance, like right at the back, where it's just all completely pixelated blurry. It has a split tail, it has the spines, you think, from a distance, hang on, that's a Mudraker right there. And that's just a game exclusive one. I don't really know, I've already mentioned this previously in the stream, but I count all the extra dragons from the games as canon because they do not impede on the main canon. And it just adds more to the whole franchise. Add more dragons to the franchise, add more abilities to previous existing dragons that the other media can't delve into that much. As I say, I work on a tier list sort of canon list. For example, if something from the game saying this dragon has a fireball, but in reality, in the films, it says, oh, this dragon has an acid blast, then I would actually count, okay, this dragon has an acid blast. Even though, to be honest, it's still even possible that a dragon could have multiple blast types. Technically, if I was going to work on that tier list, I could say, oh, the Forever Ring can only have the lava and not have the acid blast. I mean, there was an excuse within the game, I think, as well, that's saying that it doesn't tend to use the acid blast because it's weaker and takes a lot more energy than the lava blast, which makes sense. So I'm just like, sure, I don't know. You know, I mean, it doesn't really impede, it just adds more to the dragon. But it having an acid blast as well as a lava blast doesn't make it like, oh, awful, they ruined it. It's just like, eh. But if you don't want to include that, you don't have to. You know, it's up to you. I mean, a lot of the main writers of the heads, the people who create this product, a lot of them are like, well, whatever the fans think, really. I know Richard is a lot like that. Says that all the time on Twitter, which is fair enough. And personally for me, I like to include pretty much everything in canon because it just makes more fun. More media, more stuff to talk about, fleshes out all the designs and dragons more. So films/shorts, then series/comics, then the games.